Welcome, everybody. Well, super excited. Hello, guys. Nice to see you all on the chat at YouTube. Yeah, a very warm welcome from us as organizers from Flutter and beyond. A very warm welcome also to everyone from the globe. It's not only Hamburg as we started, thanks to Corona. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. We received the last time a few feedback how we can improve our stream. So as you can see, we are now having a nice software where we can easily switch scenes and screens and faces. So hopefully we will also stream today with 1080p, as most of you wishes. As I said, first of all, very warm welcome to all of you. First of all, I would like to introduce myself as I'm the host for you today. My name is Mike Schmidt. I'm a tech lead working at Claimsforce. It's an insurtech company based in Hamburg. To our agenda, we do have today 3 talks. The first talk is presented by Grisha. He will talk about developing mobile apps on a roller coaster. And it's followed by René and Eric. They will introduce basically how to build a modern website with Flutter. Maybe you might think of which website they will talk about. Spoiler. And last but not least, Chris will present today something Flutter versus Android Jetpack Compose. These are the 3 talks we prepared for you. As a small recap, because most probably we do have some new joiners for our second remote meetup we do have today. We do have a certain format. So after each talk, we take 5 minutes to answer possible questions from the chat. In case you have really questions for the presenter, don't hesitate, just ask questions in the YouTube chat, and we try our best to answer the question. And in the end, we will do an Ask Us Anything round. So in case you have any Flutter-related question, you can ask this question in the end, and we 5 try our best to answer these questions. Okay, so before we get started, we do have a few announcements also to do. Basically, we increased our organizers. I'm more than happy to introduce you to René, which is now one more organizer from our meetup group. I mean, as you might think, it's a lot of effort to organize it, and to have one more in the team is very cool. So thanks to René, and I'm looking forward to work with you. Another announcement, it's all about our website. So let's get started. You can find, as of today, our website, built for sure with Flutter for Web. You can find it under flutterandbeyond.com. More information will follow on our second talk presented by Eric and René. So they will give you more insights into how it works behind the scenes. But basically, I want to also give you a short introduction. What do we plan with this website? For sure, it's open source. You can see the website and how it's built on GitHub. For sure, this is also something where we want to combine or basically give you the chance to see which events happened, how are the presentations in case you want to see the presentations afterwards. So this is basically the single point of truth if you want to know all about our meetup group. We do want to share on a regular basis updates. So maybe we will think of having a fixed format for each meetup to talk about, okay, what we have done and how we did it. And for sure, you can sniff it on GitHub. And most promising, in my point of view, is we want to tackle together with you guys Flutter for Web challenges, which means in case you have some challenges faced along the road working with Flutter for Web, just let us know, and we try, if it makes sense, to put it into our website and also have this open source in GitHub, explain you a little bit more, and really to work on the website together with you. So this is basically our goal from us as organizer. Good. Let's get started. So as I said, Talk 2 is about our website, but now I would like to put Grisha onto our stream. So let's see if it works. Hello, Grisha.
Hello, everyone.
So I would say, Grisha, it's your stage.
Nice, thank you. And hello to everyone again. Yeah, my talk is about developing mobile apps on a roller coaster. You might think why I pick this metaphor roller coaster, because I would like to take you along with me for this journey when I just explored mobile development until now. And there were a lot of ups and downs, also some emotional moments, some frustration, confusion, and this is what this talk would be about. And also, I really hope that my fancy slides will work out and you will see the beautiful animations happening. So let's zoom in, and it all begins here. And first of all, just a small introduction about to myself. The full name is Grigory Klopkov, but shortly I'm Grisha. I'm a consultant / developer at Netlight. Originally, I'm coming from Estonia, but right now I'm living in Hamburg, Germany. What I like to do, I like to develop mobile apps. I also like to talk about software architecture and also just in general about the software products. And let's continue, and let's go to the first point. As I said, there was a time when I first time explored the mobile development. It was around 4 years ago. And from that point, I was really amazed about what you could do with mobile apps. Since my background was at that moment C++ developer and for desktop and embedded devices, and it basically was a fusion of everything. So I got excited, and then I started to move on. I started to just discover some different frameworks or ways how to develop mobile apps. And first of all, there are two big platforms that are being used until now, Android and iOS. And also there were some cross-platform frameworks that I explored, including Qt, React Native, and Xamarin. Qt was also something that I used before, and I tried it out, was also good. But at the end, I was an Android user, and I liked this green Android. So let's get him on board. And let's travel together with him during this small journey to the top. And it was pretty smooth journey to the top. I really liked the whole experience about just creating a new app. It was fairly easy, and then I just kind of boosted with this app to the peak of this roller coaster, and I realized that the app development with Android is just awesome. But as you see, what comes next, I guess, slide right down. Because I started to deep dive a bit into the SDK itself and Android, and I started to learn more about it. And at that moment, I started to realize that everything is not that easy as it is, as I imagined or I seen. So yeah, I landed somewhere here because I also had some issues with native libraries, some features. At that moment, I was working with Bluetooth, and for me as a person with the background in embedded development, I didn't understood why it doesn't work, why I can't just fix it by myself. And then, yeah, I just started to explore more. I started to understand more, but also it's a lot of material, so it started to confuse me. So at some moment, I decided, okay, let's read some insightful books, some really big things. And I read some. Also, it helped to some degree, but at some moment, I thought, okay, let's just try to explore something new. Maybe there is a more easier way that is suitable also for mobile app development, and it could be a cross-platform framework. The first Google search gave me at that moment Flutter. I was like, wow, something new from Google. So let's give it a shot and let's get Flutter to our site on our cart. And where it goes, I think to the app, because this was the first app that I created, and it was pretty easy to do. It was easy to learn, also to explore. In Flutter was everything is a widget, fairly easy to understand concept. Also, the declarative UI approach was pretty close to me because I was using it in Qt, in QML. Namely, if you are you never heard about it, you can just Google for QML and see how it looks like, and it's pretty similar to what Flutter does right now. So yeah, in general, it was fast development, ease of implementing of a UI. So yeah, overall nice experience. But then I just realized that it was an alpha, and it's not something that you would like to use in production. So it's fairly young at that moment. Also, so many libraries were missing at that moment that and that I was using for in Android app, and I landed at the bottom again, and I thought, okay, it's better to keep with Android and just use Flutter maybe for some side projects and just explore it, because I think that Flutter will grow anyway in the future. So yeah, and that was the moment when I also discovered Android plus Kotlin, because Kotlin kind of sparked something in me as a developer, and I enjoyed to develop Android apps with Kotlin. So also I realized after just looking at this young framework Flutter that Android is way much mature and the tools IDE was way much better. Also, it's pretty stable, and there are so many pros that I could mention right now, but let's just keep driving on this cart, and of course where it leads to the peak again. And as I say, everything worked out great. It wasn't a surprise. It is a Android SDK, so I think I cannot say anything here at this moment. So, but again, it wouldn't be me, and I started to deep dive again into learning, and I started to just explore more Android. And what I realized again in comparison, that there was some unnecessary complexity, and I think it is actually bound to the lifetime of Android SDK. It's considered old, and also at that moment Android introduced Jetpack and Android X. So there were a lot of things that were kind of fighting this complexity and trying to make it more less complex and easier to use, which I also enjoyed. In general, Android at that moment felt pretty heavy. Also, with when you're using the UI and implementing it in XML, for instance, just using also the life cycle things and Android, what you need to take care of. So there are so many tiny things that you realize why heavy, how heavy Android is at some moment. And then, out of sudden, I've seen the news that Flutter production ready. What? So just switched back to Flutter. Let's explore it again. And during this time, I was astonished that so much learning material was there. A lot of new packages, documentation, community. It's just awesome. And also at that moment, I started the first Flutter production project, which eventually went really nice. We worked in a small team. It was super fast to develop the app. The tools were fine. I think they could be better, but still they were working and they were providing a lot of things that we needed during the development. The custom UI, or like the fancy UI that designers wanted, was also easy to implement. And as I already mentioned, the lifecycle issues, there were no lifecycle issues, but still, you sometimes want to have this lifecycle control in your Flutter app to increase the performance. So for that reasons, you need to build something custom. And actually, yeah, it worked out well. App was done, shipped, and used until today. But then let's talk about the write down. I said custom UI was easy to implement. From the developer view, yes, it is easy. You just do it. But then you realize that you need to reinvent a lot of things. And if you implement something custom, there would be some issues on different devices, screen sizes, also accessibility. So don't forget to use semantics for newly created widgets that you want to be accessibility friendly. Also, if the font size will change or the display scaling is changing, everything needs to be taken into account. I mean, it's also not in Android it's also like this, but in Flutter it felt way much harder to do. But next is the integration and the UI testing. The toolkit itself from Flutter is nice. I cannot say anything, but still it's not ideal. And there were some solutions that I tried with different packages by the community that were actually providing to do some screenshots. It still wasn't that enough. So I'm also curious if someone already tried out the new integration test package, official package from Flutter. Please write your comments there. And the next point was the boilerplate code. This is just mainly in comparison to Kotlin. Although Dart and Kotlin have similarities, still they miss some things that you will need to use a code generation for: data classes, sealed classes. And this was also some point where we had some issues. And the last point, and almost the bottom of this after this peak, was the poor quality of some packages, especially the ones that interacting with the native side of platform. You need to really examine it and understand what is inside before actually using it. So because most of the stuff was also developed by community, it's also good to have another look before actually using it. So we landed on the bottom. And at this moment, I switched back to Android. And what actually happened here, it was good to see Kotlin again. I still like Kotlin, and it was nice to develop in it again. It felt really nice to be back to this Mature SDK, which already have a lot of things solved, and you don't need to reinvent them. So overall, it felt like in a good old car, where you just get in, everything is kind of working, nicely done, and you know how to operate it. But then I started to compare again with the former experience in Flutter. The build speed is way much slower, and even after some optimizations, you still cannot achieve that because of Android nature, how it was built at that moment, that is based on Java and Dalvik. So also it uses Gradle, which is enough fast, but is not in comparison to the Flutter build, Flutter compiler. And also, there were no real hot reload, which I really missed. It was time-saving thing that I used in Flutter, and I didn't realize how good it is. And in general, it felt like Android was a bit overgrown, and I thought like, yeah, it's harder to understand, but it's still something that I enjoy to use. And another point was for me the complexity in implementing some simple things. And what I'm meaning in simple things, it's, I think almost every Android developer would agree that implementing a list view in Android is it's more harder than to do it in Flutter. And this is just one single point that I could mention, but there are a lot of other things to talk about what could be improved. And speaking of that, there is a hope in a Jetpack Compose. I tried it, really nice. Today we will have a talk about it, so stay tuned for that. And that leads actually to this question, yeah, which one should I choose? I actually don't want to choose none of them. I want to choose both. Not none of them, but both. Because I like mobile development, and what matters for me is I want to develop the apps, and how it's all comes to me. And I would use Android, I would use Flutter. If I would need to learn something new, I would learn it, because what matters for me is the apps development. And let's go with this car to the sunset. And now let's have a look at this small, some journey that I had in my in mobile development. Maybe you would ask or think, what is the moral of the story? I can share some learnings or my thoughts that I just kind of seen and experienced during the whole time. And they're kind of related also to all the peaks that you've seen here. First of all, mobile development is awesome. Just try it. You will not regret it. I enjoy it, and I think you will enjoy it also. Also, try out new technologies. Don't be afraid to do it. It won't bite you. It won't hurt you to just explore something new, because it's all experience, and you can use it in your other projects, in your other development career, developer's career, sorry. And also, it's mostly remark for me, because I tend also to not explore things that deep, but I try to do it from time to time and deep diving into the things and understanding why it's working this way, and not just complaining like I did a bit right now, but really diving into that and understanding the tools that you're working in, the language. It helps tremendously. Also, really embrace the testing during development. The testing is part of development. And I'm not talking about writing unit tests, UI tests, integration tests. It's also just test it with your own hands, test it together with your quality specialist, with your fellow developers. And just don't forget that that in mobile world there are so many devices that are big and small and foldable, whatever. And this is something that I tend right now to remind myself all the time when I try out something new. I also use the right tools for development. Why I put the right in the quotes? Because I think some people interpret it like using, for instance, you develop something heavy, utilizing native features, just do it in Android. You can also do it in Flutter, because if you know how to deal with Android, you could anyway achieve the result of what you want to build. And also, the right doesn't mean the right tool to solve the problem. It also means that you know how to use this tool to solve that problem. So I think that's all of my points. I hope the whole thing that I talked today and the journey that I shared with you was interesting, and I'm really curious about your questions. So if I won't be able to answer everything right now, hit me up on Twitter and ask me there. Thank you.
Thank you, Grisha. So awesome, right? So maybe after the talk you need to send me the link for this insightful book. I have to read this. Yeah, but basically in comparison after your talk, I mean, there's a chance that you could ride the roller coaster a second time, especially if you check Flutter for Web for me. Maybe this is something spoiler for the next talk, but I had the same ride if it comes to roller coasting and Flutter for Web. But anyways, let's check the chat if we do have some questions. I mean, I saw some. So Marco said he's using. They are using this integration plugin of Flutter. And what do you want to know? So, but basically, someone is already in the chat who is using the integration feature you just mentioned.
Yeah, I was just curious if there are people who are using, and I was curious about the experience of how it worked out. Do you like it? Because I want to try it also again.
Yeah, but I can just give you also some heads up from the chat. Right.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I didn't spot any other questions. As we said, let's keep it a little bit freestyle-ish. So if you have later questions and ask us in our Ask Us Anything round. So keep going.
Yep.
And basically, I already spoiled a bit for Flutter for Web, so maybe it's a chance also to put Eric and René to stage. Hey, guys.
Greetings, everybody.
Are you ready to rumble?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So,
let's get ready to rumble.
Of course.
Have fun.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Mike, for the introduction and everything. Yeah, just to make it short, thank you for the stuff, for having me. I'm very happy to be able to be part of that. It already made fun talking with all of you guys and organizing this meetup already and planning everything. The switch up with the new stuff we've done with the streaming layout and the streaming software and so on. And I think we are doing something very great and fun. And I hope you will all enjoy and follow us along as long as you want and can. And I think we will have some awesome content for you prepared in the future. And now already, maybe, if you're interested in what's coming up next.
Quick question, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can at least, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that should be enough, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, I will just tell you when you click the next one, right?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Thanks. Welcome to our little topic, our little talk right here. Thanks for the response in the chat also, Eric. Because we want to make sure that you get all of the information we have for you about modern websites and building them with Flutter, because this is still a very new topic. And René and I, we both actually have a web background also before we started working with Flutter. So some Angular action going on there. So also can make some comparisons along these lines. But yeah, this is the topic, and we have a few agenda points, very classically. I didn't even need to give the cue. Synergies. So yeah, a quick venture into the new design. I mean, Mike already talked a little bit about this, but we have a few more information about that. Then we want to talk a little bit about our general approach. So what kind of ideas did we have when we went into the project of developing a website, the website for this for this meetup? What kind of features are already in the app? What kind of features are like soon TM, which we have in mind, and they are in the pipeline but didn't make the cut for now. So we want to talk about that. The general setup, how you can basically set up your Flutter web project, what things are to consider there. A live demo, of course, of the stuff we built, and some surprises there maybe. Also, what kind of learnings we had. There were a few, like it works as Flutter as you would expect, but it has a lot of caveats and a lot of quirks and stuff you need to Google, and also a lot of pains. But yeah, we will get there. So you can do the next one, please. Yes, so the new design, just a few words, because we changed this also mid-development basically for the website, because and then at this point, great thanks to Grisha's girlfriend who provided the new designs for us, basically because we all four are very, very limited with our creativity. So she designed this beautiful banner and also the icon that is flashing in the corner. So just to have some more identity for our meetup, and of course this can be revisited, but now like we want to create something that is recognizable and so on, and this is also something we then wanted to transport in the website we built. And I guess this is the cue for you now to take over, Renee, right?
Yeah, nice timing, I guess. Nice timing. Yeah, so as Eric already said, we started in, and like we're making some points about, okay, so what should this page be about, and how do we want to tackle this? Obviously, and I mean it's really obvious, we are using Flutter. I mean there should be no surprise. I mean we have some Angular background, of course, but for this whole process and the whole experience and the project, we're obviously using Flutter, since Flutter Web is available. And we wanted to try the single page mindset. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the whole Flutter project and using Navigator and so on, you're practically, it's still a single page mindset. You're just pushing and popping views on top of each other. So you could still argue it's still a single page one, but we try to use it to extend where it's like really just one view, and we just toggle or switch the content based on different aspects, like the current state of the program or web base, and the URL, for example. We'll come back to that later on. One really important approach for this is obviously being responsive, since websites can be opened on a desktop with a really big screen, can be opened on a MacBook with maybe a little bit smaller screen, but you can obviously also open it on your mobile phone, and it should look good on every device screen. So tackling responsiveness is really important, since a lot of you or people in general might visit our page on mobile, and it should look very good. And I mean, Flutter has all the stuff you need to make it responsive. You just have to use it right, I guess. So we try that and tried that so far, and try to keep it so at this. And we will see it later on. And last but not least, we try to do a different approach about the layout. Like, I mean, you could go basic and like go, yeah, we got a navbar on top, like some normal drawer opening, and so like the normal page layout, like for the last couple of years. But we were like, well, if we are all experiencing all the way, why not go all in and try a different layout? I mean, it's just not innovating just in a highly extent, but it's still something different that you might expect usually. And as Eric already said, we wrote this soonish right underneath. This website will have some features. There will be probably some features in the future we might not know right now. But what we know right now is that we want to have two major features integrated. Like one of them being the Google API integration, because like we are like all open source and we want to like have access, give you access to everything we do here, like the slides and maybe some code we share. Even the website is open source and so on, and all the documents like presentations and additional ones we have, we want to share it. And it is basically already a shared folder, but you know, you would have to follow a link to Google Drive and download it there. It's not really convenient, so we want to integrate it into the page so you can directly see all the documents inside the web page and download and access them from there. So we want to use it by using the Google API integration. I will come back to that later on if we show the demo or talk about it better on. And the other thing we wanted to integrate is the meetup integration. Like most of you or a lot of you just signed in the meetup page, and kudos to that. I really like that. So we can see how many people roughly gonna participate. And we will like post all the updates, all the upcoming meetings on Meetup itself. So Meetup is also like a very, very important like web page where you can see some updates or infos about all the stuff. And we don't want to spread all the knowledge. We don't want to have, as I said, a Google Drive link where you can see all the documents. So you have to leave the page again, then have the meetup page where you have to go to the meetup page again. So we want everything on one web page. It's easier for the user, for everyone who is on the page, just having everything inside there. So we have to work on some integrations there and see how we get to that. And yeah, just a quick insight before I show you the page itself. To use Flutter Web, you can already do that for quite some time now. It's not in the stable branch because, as we always said, the whole Flutter web stuff is still in beta. So you can't use it if you're in stable. You have to switch channel. So if you are, for example, now developing in channel in stable because of, don't know, you do it on your own or you're on the work environment or whatsoever, before, what you have to do first is change the channel, the branch, and you can do it right away in your terminal with the Flutter command, just using Flutter channel beta, for example. You can go to any more up-to-date branch, for example, dev or master as well, but beta is probably the way to go if you have been on stable before. You don't want to go too deep into master because there could be some problems there. So you switch to beta, run the command flutter upgrade, so you're sure you're going to the latest version of the channel, and then you have to do what you have to do as the last point is activating the enable web flag in your config, and you can do it just right away with a command flutter config enable web, and you're already almost ready to go. If you're, for example, in an existing project and you want to enable web there, you can do just one little trick. You can run the command which you would usually run to create a new project, but just end it with a dot. You just write flutter create dot, and it will exist missing files, and missing would be here, for example, the web part, because it would be in a new project from now on. And if you run flutter create dot, it will create it, and you will have all the web stuff in there, and you're already ready to go. So what's left is, I hope you all get the Rick and Morty reference. If not, it could be it's not so cool anymore. But we thought it's cool. Yeah, please. Okay, but then let me switch over to the page. Yeah. So this is the current status. It's not too fancy, but on the other hand, we like it minimalistic. We will see how this will evolve over the time. As Mike said, a really important part. This whole page and this whole project will evolve. This is by far not the last version or anything. We want to use this journey and improve it by time. And if we have some major updates, we might add it to a talk, just as Mike said. But you will see some updates over the time, and it's just like one state currently. But yeah, we decided this, as I said, single page application. So I mean, there is nothing going on here. You cannot scroll here anything or do anything else. The only thing you can do is scroll inside this card. So this card is your actually main content of the page, and on the left side here, the buttons are the actually triggers for changing the pages or the content from the cards. For example, I'm now currently on home, and if I want to switch to events, I'm just clicking on events, and you can see the URL itself updated to events, and the content is now part of the events. This actually works already. So these are just like bare bones, but you can see already some meetup, the latest meetup stuff in here. I could click on it. I will just do it. And yeah, it will open the meetup page in this case. So this already works. It's some kind of integration, like it will be improved by a lot, but we just wanted to get it running bare bones. And usually there would have been another one here, which it would have called files or something like that, because we are talking about the Google API connection. But well, let me tell you that we had to remove it from now because there were some pains, which Eric will go on later on, which we decided like it's not even half production ready. So we decided to remove it from now on to have a more cleaner way for now. Yeah, in the future, there will be another one where you can see all the shared documents. It will come, just not right now. And at last, we have the about page. It has like the most important part. It has a cat gif that's like very important for a page like that. But yeah, you can see this is like all the stuff is like bare bones. We just wanted to have like a start of all this, something that runs and have some of our approaches already in mind, and want to see how far we can go from that. Also keep in mind there has been quite some long evening work in it, but all in all, there's not too much work in it. So we will have to improve and go on and put in so much effort. Yeah, and what I said earlier is one of our approach is responsiveness. So what I want to show you now is what happens if I like make it smaller. You will see it's not optimal as well, but you can see from now as the card will still decrease. From now to a place where it's too small currently, we have to like adjust the font size for a case like this, let it scale as well. Currently, it's just 2% in smaller screens. But what I want to present right now is if you saw, we have some breakpoints inside, which once we have reached a size which is usually used in mobile environments, we switch to a more mobile-friendly view. This is something, I mean, this is nothing too new. You will see it on like all the current hipster up-to-date websites, obviously. Like this is nothing very new, but at least we had find a solution to do that in Flutter in a, I would say, pretty easy way. And I think it's, since our approach was this card with all the content, it actually still looks almost the same and pretty cool. At least that's what we think about it from now on. And in the top, you can see we decided to use this approach, like this logo in the center, and in the title left and right, some fanciness. For the burger menu, very funny, we have used actually a card, which is like a menu. So why not? And if you open it, you've got this normal drawer behavior as you would have expected in an app. And I mean, all the other stuff on the common websites do this already. But as I said, doing it in Flutter was pretty easy and pretty straightforward and pretty cool that it works out of the box. And yeah, you can just click it here. It does the same, closes the drawer, opens the page. So yeah, just works as expected. It even has all the touch gestures, so you can just like, yeah, do that, for example, just would have expected it in an app. So like really small adjustments and stuff we've done here in this early stage of the web. But I think we're still pretty proud of it. I think it's pretty cool one. And the last thing we can do is, maybe you've noticed this, probably not, but there is a plus sign here. And I can click on it and I can install it. So what it also does is making use of the PWA, this the way you can just install it as a web application. And I can just do it here. And now I have it like an application. It's in the background, it's still running in Chrome, don't get me wrong, but it looks and feels like an actual application, because don't have all the stuff with like the bookmarks and so on, no URL and so on. And now it feels like an actual application right out of the box. We didn't have to do anything for that. And I think that's pretty cool. And you can even resize it here and go back to the view. So you can see we were able to achieve quite some stuff, and didn't have to do too much explicitly for the web. A lot of stuff you would have done in the normal Flutter environment as well. So that's pretty cool, I think. But yeah, let's get back to the presentation at this point. Yeah, first some learning. So the good part, or at least the nice to know part. Not all of them are related to web per se. For example, the first one is not something which you are only doing in the web environment. But we wanted to like write everything down that came in mind once we've done it or build it. And one thing is the theming part. Many of you who have been working with Flutter in the past probably have been fighting or working with the theming yourself. You can do really cool stuff with theming, but you have to like, kind of get to know it. There are many quirks, many changes even, and you have to be aware of what you do here. And what we wanted to do is making use of the color scheme, because the color scheme is a property you can set, which makes it easier to find a general color layout for the whole application. As the name says, a color scheme for the whole stuff. But the problem is, once you want to use color scheme, you have to make use from the constructor from theme data, and the color and it allows the color scheme. But on the other hand, we wanted to change the font, but there's no way that you can apply a font and a color scheme in the same manner. Like if you would just use theme data, you can provide font family, but no color scheme. If you're using theme data you can use a color scheme, but not the font family value. So this was a little bit tricky, and we had to do some kind of workaround where we defined like a clear theme data with theme data light, took the text theme of it, and applied the font family on it. So it's not the cleanest way to do that, and we hope we will find a more cleaner way in the future. But for now, it worked, and we'll have to keep that in mind, at least from now on. Yeah, Eric,
Yes.
is it a good part for you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I will talk mostly about the pains later on, but also I have a learning to share. It's not all bad. Yeah, one thing that is pretty interesting, and that is, as far as I know, very special to Flutter Web, which you would not need if you do normal cross-platform app development. It's the font manifest, and this is also not something that, as far as I know, Flutter invented or something like this. I think this is a standard web thing, but you just have to be aware of it. So, like in our case, as Renee said, we wanted to not have like the default Roboto font or whatever, but we wanted also to use the font, the Montserrat, we have also on our on our like whole design language now. So this is something that was provided with the banner, and then we thought, okay, for consistency, we're going for this as well. But figuring out this also took a lot of effort, basically, of searching and finding Stack Overflow posts or some very old GitHub issues. Basically, very few information about this. So long story short is that providing the fonts in the pop spec is not enough. So it will work like as long as you're doing the local build. So when you provide the fonts in the assets folder and then just define them as you know this probably already, then it works. But once you deploy it to the web, like it won't work again. So this is why in the web folder, so this is the one you will get from the command that Renee mentioned earlier. So something that is special about the Flutter Web project, of course, you have to create an assets folder and then put a font manifest JSON in it. And basically what you tell them with this is like when the web app loads, then it has the path to basically load additional resources. So that you can, like this, the font file itself, it doesn't need to be. So the build that the Flutter build runs, so basically creates everything and then also puts the font file, of course, in a separate place. And this font manifest file basically then tells the browser where to find this additional font and to properly load it. So this is just some caveat you have to know about. And that was already it. That's my only learning from the whole process.
But yeah, there's as we always said, there's some stuff like you might not be aware of once you start all this, because it's not like you're getting told everything up front. So sometimes you have to go deep dive in and find it out yourself, at least in some old issues like this one. So another learnings we had, like for example, as I said, the responsiveness was one important approach we wanted to tackle. And we have used, for now at least, we have used two techniques for that. One is we have created a widget we call constraint container, which is basically just a constraint box inside. And the constraint box, for those who don't know it yet, the constraint box is a widget where you can apply a box constraint class. And this box constraint, you can tell in max some constraints like min width, max height, and min height. So it can like even if the screen is too big or too small, it won't exceed those values. So this is something which we use, for example, since we have tried to use different screen layouts or sizes. This was something that helped us to not extend our card, for example, to a size where on bigger screens it was just way too big. So a constraint box was a good call there. Another thing we used was this responsive wrapper we wrote. It made use of the so-called dependency inversion. It's something you maybe wrote yourself already. At least a lot of or some important widgets in Flutter already make use of this concept behind that. You've probably used a future builder, a stream builder, a layout builder. Everything that's like ending with builder is making use of it. Like those called widgets, those dependency inversion, which make use of dependency inversion, are like smart widgets. This is maybe you can heard of it from other perspective, like smart component, dumb component, and this is like a smart widget which is like controlling, in our case, like, is this mobile or is it desktop right now? And the responsive wrapper or widget is controlling it on its own and is providing this information through his own builder to everything which is down. So what we can do right now is, like, if we have any part in our code where we said, okay, we have to be aware here, this could have might have been to display in another way if we are on mobile or desktop. So we just wrap our responsive wrapper around it, and we get this information just in the builder method, which tells us, is it mobile or not? So this is really easy for us from now on to like just wrap it and and change the layout depending on where we are on. And we are doing it and not based on platform, which we might think is a good way to think, okay, is it web or is it mobile or whatever? But since you could open this page on a real computer, on a website, or you could even open it on a smartphone, the using platform is not so reliant. So we're just we're making it based on screen size. It's much easier there. Just one important widget here is actually the wrap widget. I just want to give you here. Wrap is like, you usually make use of column, which is like placing widget underneath each other, and you make use of the row widget, which is placing them next to each other horizontally. And the web widget is like kind of combining this. The web widget is from the normal layout is trying to position them in a row. Yeah, but once we reach the end and there's no place anymore, it will just place the next children beneath each other and start a new row. So wrap is a really, really, really important and good one you can use in such responsive environments where you know you will have an very large list or not infinite or not known amount of elements, and you want to plate them and you want to have them next to each other if possible. You can make use of wrap and it will have the responsiveness on its own. Very important widget. And two very important widget, really especially for web, is selectable text and mouse pointer. This is something you might not think about, but once you want to display text on the web and you're just using the text widget, it's not selectable. Like you're used to, if you're visiting any page, any homepage, whatever, you're used to being able to select text, but using text widget, it's not provided. You actually have to use another widget, which is called selectable text. And as the name indicates, this text there will be selectable with a mouse. It can be used just like the text widget. It's actually just another name, which has this functionality from its own. So this is something to keep in mind if you want to have part of your website being selectable to copy paste or whatever. And another point is like a mouse pointer. Being in a normal app environment, you don't need something like that because you have just your finger and the touch events. So there is nothing like a pointer or a hover or something like that. But once you're in a web environment, users could be on a desktop and be using a mouse as usual, and visiting normal websites, not using Flutter, you're used to having the pointer change based on where you're hovering above. For example, if you're hovering above a button, you want the mouse pointer to be this kind of hand click, want to click on it. And this is something that is not out of the box in Flutter. At least now it is kinda. You just have to wrap this mouse pointer around everything that has to change it. You can declare different kind of mouse pointers in there. It had one property which says which kind of cursor do you want to display here, and usually you want to go with the hand clicking on it because you want to show that this is a clickable button, for example. But luckily since this everything Flutter Web is developing, some widgets have this from their own. Like Raise Button already is doing it on its own. So you have to only have to care it if you're making some custom stuff. Yeah, and the last two things I want to say about this is like the drawer adjustment is another important thing. Like you want to have a drawer when you are like in the mobile view, like as I showed you earlier. And usually you don't want to have the open gesture. You want to disable it because it depends on which platform you are. But for example, on iOS, the back gesture is the same one as opening the drawer. So for example, if I'm using Chrome or Safari or whatever, you would expect if you like put your finger on the left side and swipe to the right that you go to the previous page. But it would also trigger opening the drawer. And this is something you probably don't want. So you probably should make sure that you disable the open gesture at this. But the closing swipe is nice. You can actually define both. And I think the closing swipe is okay because you're doing it in the middle of the screen. But I would suggest all of you to just disable this open gesture. And yeah, the last thing is, this is just what I showed you in the app. We didn't have to do anything. It already enables these out-of-the-box PWA, where you can just install it as an application, and you already have a kind of old application without opening your browser, which is pretty cool, I guess.
All right.
Yeah, now you come to a fun part.
Yeah, now that we heard about all of the cool stuff and what is working and what you can take away from this, it's more of a emotional story to tell now. Probably less of a technical one, or a mixture of both, maybe. So yeah, the next chapter and the last chapter of our talk is called Pains, or AKA Welcome to the World Wide Web. So basically stuff that comes up once you do web development, and yeah. So there are some pretty obvious things for people that have already probably worked in web development, or like generally not unknown things, but like they show up, and then like it's an unknown environment and you first have to get accustomed to it. So yeah, while we dabbled with the Meetup API, so the tool we use often for just prototyping and testing endpoints is called now I forgot it, Insomnia. It's similar to Postman. Maybe you heard of one of the two. So it's basically just like a tool where you can make any kind of requests towards an endpoint. And this is also how we tested the Meetup API in the first place, because we thought, okay, maybe it's nice to get data from there and just not to like be forced to manually maintain our website with content, so that we get some stuff like automatically. So when we were doing these things in Insomnia, like everything went fine. We were like, oh man, like you don't even need authentication or something to get the information from their API. And we were like, yeah, man, easy peasy to include in our page, and then we are done with it and can start with something else. But yeah, like then once you make the request from the Flutter web app, you have a CORS issue. So if you're not familiar with CORS, it's short for cross-origin resource sharing, and it's basically a method in the web to it's a security measure, so that when you are making a request from a different domain than the API is on, it's get rejected. And this can be basically configured on the web server hosting the API with the access control header, like what kind of requests and from which domain are allowed. You can also do a lot with whitelisting and stuff, for example, but not to go too deep into this. But yeah, we were having a lot of issues also before we actually got to the conclusion that it might be a caused error. I mean, it showed, but like we were always like, yeah, but man, Insomnia is working, so why is this not working? This has other reasons why Insomnia and Postman are working, because they are not like a real application or do some sort of background magic. But yeah, so this is where we got caught up, and then it resulted in we needed an OAuth account for the Meetup API, and then we decided to skip it for now. But one thing that we took a screenshot of in the night where we did most of the developing for the new website is this: how do I avoid JavaScript logout with CORS? This is a screenshot from the official Flutter documentation. And although it's like it's not directly related to our issue, it's just the only thing that is like to be found with the course topic, and it's a TBD. So like that was just a real cruel, and I was funny but also cruel in the same way. Like it was 3 a.m. in the morning and we just wanted to connect it, and then you go to the Flutter documentation and read that it's something they have on the roadmap but have not addressed yet. Was a little frustrating. I mean, of course it is not a real Flutter problem, but yeah, it was situation comedy, as you would call it. Next one, please. The next one is a rather like it's not that exciting of a topic, but just something we experienced a lot while developing, just in comparison from normal Flutter development. So you have a lot of issues, or we had a lot of issues with breakpoints and debugging in general. So oftentimes, like especially when the application was running and you wanted to like remove existing breakpoints or change the code and then set a breakpoint to the new code you added, there can happen all sorts of like lags, freezes, and oftentimes the application or the debugger also crashed. So you get this beautiful message down there, error from the back end. And it's just one example, like just to mention that it could have been other causes, but it can also be very likely a Flutter web thing that is just not as stable at the moment. I have not experienced this while developing Flutter normally. So this is just something to maybe highlight if this is important for you. I mean, after all, Flutter web is not in production state so far. So this is very likely something they will address in the future. But if this is something that is critical for you, definitely look out for that. Oh, I don't need perfect synergies, man. I love it. And some other issues in no particular order or context that were just sometimes funny or I don't know, depressing or both. So for one, this is also something that you can only see like when you develop locally, it will work. So like when you use your icons, your material icons, as you would normally do in the application, when you do this in web, it will work when you do it locally. But if you deploy it, you will get this beautiful bad boy of a double burger. We coined the double burger bug. Actually, there's nothing to be found on the internet yet, as far as we know. So like it knows the icons, but for some reason, all of the material icons are replaced with this double burger. And yeah, we don't really know a solution to this. This is also how we ended up with the funny menu icon, basically, that we have now in the application, because we had to resort to using icon pictures instead of icons. There is a way, and it actually also changed in the past couple months. I just had today been Googling some Stack Overflow and GitHub issues, and there has been like a highly upvoted comment actually how to solve this, also with the font manifest or the asset manifest, how you can solve this. But like all of the this was posted in August last year, but I think in the past 2 months or so, somebody was commenting that this changed entirely and the original answer is not working anymore. So there's another issue there. We just basically gave up for now, used images instead of the icons. But this is something to look out for, that it's a little bit it's not that obvious how it works, basically, to make this work. It should be easier, actually, essentially, than the way it is now. So something to look out for, the double burger bug. And then the Google Drive API. This also does not have something to do with Flutter itself or Flutter Web, but it was driving us mad. Like we were working with the Google Cloud Platform, and you need a Google Service account to access anything there. And actually, there's a very popular package basically for Flutter for all the Google APIs. It's auto-generated and basically crawls all of the different APIs that are exposed, and you can use them. And when we started Googling for this, there's a README file, as you would expect for any good package, and it actually did all the describing and had a specific example for the Google Drive API. And we were like, yeah, man, cool. I mean, this is stuff we actually just wanted to get out of the way and then get more into designing the website, all the fun stuff. And then we were very happy that we found this. But yeah, as you can imagine, it wasn't that easy. So the example actually wasn't for the Google Drive API in the end. It was for something different, for a storage API. We don't know, just for another endpoint from the Google Cloud Platform. So this didn't work. We had to figure this out. And there's like on no side really good documentation about anything, also about the Google Drive API. Like it recently changed from a V2 to a V3 version. And with this, also a lot of stuff they removed and added stuff, and like a lot of things you find on Stack Overflow and on the internet in general doesn't work anymore. So it was really, really a pain. And yeah, this is also why we removed it for now, because we need to find a few solutions, because right now, like doing local development, we used a JSON for the credentials, basically for the service account, but we couldn't publish this to our public repo. So we need to do this in a pipeline step. And we will figure this out, but we will add it at some point. We are already accessing the files, but it was a lot more complicated than we had anticipated. So this is also what the screenshot is about, that you see, the slim one. It's a screenshot from the end of our session. So Renee and I did a regular Saturday night programming session. We set out on the website on 8 p.m. on a Saturday evening and stopped at 6 a.m. on Sunday. And I think a good 6 hours went into only dealing with the Google Drive API and Meetup API. And this is a snippet of what the browser looked like at a certain point in time. So we were really desperate to find any kind of answers. And we only wanted to play the demo of Monster Hunter Rise. And we didn't get to. So that was very frustrating. And just to give you an idea what kind of blood and tears went into the development of this simple looking app. But as developers, like the devil is always in the detail. And I think this is about as much as the content we have right now. I think we are also over time, and Chris is already in the starting position. So thank you very much. This is the two of us. We will share the slides, and if you want to contact us, do so. Whatever you want, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. So I guess you played 6 hours of Monster Hunter World, but different story. But basically, now to your talk, René, I guess now I know how people felt years ago as I saw the first responsive web page. So, I mean, it was for you a magic moment. So
it was. It was.
Yeah. Let's check the chat for some questions. I saw already some from Kevin, so for sure, most important question: are there any Easter eggs? Yeah. So
to be honest, not yet.
There was no time. No time.
But even here, Kevin, it's open source, and if you would like to add some Easter eggs, make a pull request, and maybe we'll merge it.
Community
the funny part will be, since it's open source, and maybe once this gets more attention, whatever, it will. The funny part, the difficult part will be for us to build in an Easter egg which will not be found. Since the code is open source.
Indeed. Yeah.
Oh damn.
We nobody knows what's happening here, and we have to try that. It's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, we do have one question from David, and from the very beginning of our stream, he asked, "Okay, we want to use Flutter for web as a CRM and project management system. What do you think? Where are the limits regarding this use case? Is this something we want to cover, or something you would like to talk, René and Eric?"
I think we could extend this topic to an unlimited amount of time, obviously, I think. But to make it short, at least what I could say to that is, I wouldn't suggest to do that in a productive way, to be honest, because it has a reason why Flutter Web is still in beta, because there are a lot of other issues we will probably still face in the future, which haven't been covered yet because we are still in the early development. There are some small quirks that will happen all the way down, and the performance on this side currently is okay, but once you will have a lot of big widget trees with listing, with scrolling, animations especially, the performance will not be as good as you would like it to be. So unfortunately, I would say it's a pass for now. You can play with it around and test it for your own, but not for production, at least not now.
Yeah. Would be my answer as well. Like a lot of the pains we also talked about. I mean, if it's only just like the debugging, a lot of areas are quite unstable or not well documented. Also, one big issue that we haven't covered that like broadly, but also you have to imagine that all of the packages that are available were mostly developed for the native or for the native apps mostly. So that the package developers basically have to catch up first to make it either like that it's working in web as well, or that they make some kind of like notes why it doesn't work. So a very good example would be path provider. So like something that is very well known and liked, and you can use it to access your file system without a lot of effort. But for web, there is no file system. So just also something that is inherent, basically, so that they cannot do something about, but you have to know it. So you find a solution, basically, for the Google Drive thing. We actually encountered this when we wanted to download the files, actually, which was a big pain, and we can maybe share about this in the future. But like, there was a solution with Path Provider, and of course it doesn't work. Like, you cannot create a file and then just access it on a file system, and just you have to work around these things. And yeah, so for a production app, especially as a CRM project management, where you really have to rely on the development and stuff, I would definitely not recommend it.
Yeah, so I can also add, I guess, my 2 sentences on that. So back in February 2020, we had our first kickoff for this Flutter meetup group in Hamburg. And we, as Claimsforce, we proudly announced, hey, come on, we are using Flutter for web in production. It's such awesome and all this kind of fancy stuff. But the drawback is 1 month later, we really shut down our application because we came to the point, okay, a text is not selectable. Come on, it's a behavior. Every heavy user in a web browser expects this. And if you need to wrap now each text element with selectable text, and even the erase button there was not the mouse pointer. So all these kind of tweaks, basically, Flutter should help us in implementing multi-platform application. Didn't help. So I can just tell from Claimsforce, we stopped also to use it in production. So this is really something you consider. I would really say for enterprise applications, I would not go this road. Yeah.
Regarding your other questions, David, just because we want to keep to schedule a little bit, stick around for the session after the talks. You can also join the studio if you want to talk directly. So just stick around. And I think it's first of all time to give Chris the show.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. So maybe we can invite Chris to the stage.
Yeah, we do a group talk now.
I guess Chris is just a black square. Here are no technical difficulties.
No.
Maybe
all intended.
Chris, if you can hear us, maybe you can rejoin our lobby.
I mean, yes, I can hear you. Yeah,
but we don't see your cam.
Yeah, we can't see you.
No. But maybe it's on purpose. Yeah.
Oh. No.
No, okay, you can't see me?
No, unfortunately not. We have seen you before in the test, so
yeah.
You could reload maybe, just one try, or we can go like that.
Must be a permissions thing, or you can check out the settings at the bottom of the screen. The first tab is camera, and then you will see what's available.
Wow.
Let's say this. We come back in 30 seconds.
Can you see me now?
Yes!
Ah, the magic countdown.
Wow, not bad. I didn't expect that.
Sorry for that. Sorry for that. I don't know what happened right now. My camera broke.
Would probably the system is built with Flutter for web, but okay.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric. Chat you later. Yeah. Good. Chris, the stage is yours.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it was wrong. Go ahead, all good.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the Flutter and the Jetpack Compose. Yeah. What is Jetpack Compose? So the same to Flutter, it is a Android native decorative UI tool that Google works for the same approach on the Android native platform. So let's revisit the programming concepts. So what is decorative development, or the next? So decorative development, what? It's a new concept for me? No, I'm a mobile developer since 2010. So why I should know more deeper concept about decorative or imperative? So what's that? So the counterpart is the naming imperative. Yeah, they're also confusing me because as I first time joined the Flutter, there are two different concepts in front of me to talk about this. I never cared this because I was Android developer. What's the difference? So finally, after almost 1 year experience in the Flutter, I got slowly the feeling the differences between the decorative and the imperative programming style or working style or coding style. So let's give a simple use case to figure out the difference between them. So you are sitting in a taxi and your taxi driver will pull you to some place you want to go. So normally, if you're sitting in the car, so the driver will ask you, where are you going? My answer is, go straight forward. So, and turn left at 200-meter points and continue 20 meter. And then I will go there. So the car is just going on the way. This is so-called imperative behavior, which means you guide the driver where you are going. It's like a traditional programming style you're writing in the normal Android native program. So on the other hand, we will use another style to run the whole businesses. The driver will ask you, where are you going? So my answer is Hero Square behind the Gava house, please. And the driver will start engine and start working and follow a kind of a routing on the map in the taxi or in some map app. And they will bring you to the place we're going. This is so-called decorative. So you have the road and you have the destination where you're going. And Flutter official website has really a good, funny documentation to talk about this. So here it's just a revisit to this concept between the traditional programming, imperative programming, and decorative programming. So let's go straight forward next to the today topic, Compose and Flutter. So the language difference between them is the Kotlin and the Dart. Yeah, today the Android development is Kotlin official since 2018 or 2017. And the Dart, of course, it's only one language support for the Flutter development. And the standard library, Android Kotlin is a little bit rich. It's more richer. I think it's much more rich than the Flutter Dart, to be honest. And this is just from my experiences. And for the building system, it's Flutter. It is use different configuration, iOS and Android. Android is Gradle, but on Compose, it might be also DSL. So as I know, and I look for the official sample GitHub, they use different ways to build an Android project Compose. And the Dart support async await, and the Kotlin use the call routines. It's pretty nice. So if we are all mobile developer, I hope all audience a lot of you are Android developers or some Android background. So we are mobile developer basically. And if we build the app, we probably will think about some basic stuff like app thing, which is dark or light model support, and also the view, we call view in Android, or activity, whatever, and the window in Android somehow. And in Flutter, we use widget. We call this all widget in the UI. And the next is a view controller. So I here use the name view controller, means on Android we call view model. Maybe on Flutter we call the block. But generally I use the neutral name, the view controller, to control the state of the view and the logic. And the navigation, which brings you to the place, to the screen where you are going and you attend. And also the data will come from, we call this repository. So there are two kind of data store that we can use for data storage, to save the data with key value, or just a simple a untype safe or type safe place to save your data, to put your data, and also use the database. Android, we use SQLite wrap with the room. Flutter, we also use SQLite, a simple line, a third-party plugin which support this. Now we dive into some code comparison directly. I still support we are all developer with mobile develop background, Android, or some Flutter, some Android. So I hope there's no iOS developer here. So for Compose, we first step to define the thing. You see on the two parts, or from the two parts, you see so similar code style. In the Flutter or in the Android, you also define the material thing. Now the latest version we call the Compose thing, and on Flutter we call the material app, or Cupertino's app, etc. They define the theme data come from the color and the typographic. So we have seen before in the web application presentation before. They are pretty. They looks pretty similar. This is actually the advancement that the Google introduced in the Android native program, so-called the decorative program. It's a new style in programming and a new thinking. Google even think this is a new SDK. And for the UI and the view, they also share similar concept. Like in Flutter, you see, you just return a widget. I know all Flutter developer knows how it is. And in the Compose Android world, we just give a compose library, a compose method, which annotated with a compose annotation. You don't have to bring the return. You just bring another compose method, which is wrapped by the another compose method. And for the view controller, as mentioned on Android, we all call the view model. And for the Flutter, we use block. So if you don't use the third-party library, the block is just a name that you use, a traditional name in the Flutter world. So it extends from the change notify, which is a native supported by Flutter to control the state. So as mentioned, the view controller will control the view state. So on Flutter and on Compose, they also have the similar, which they can share together. Flutter first, it uses the async snapshot, which contains different states like do nothing and waiting for, which is progress, which is loading process, and the result with data or result with some errors. On Android Compose, it's pretty simple. It's nothing. There's no thingy like the waiting state or nothing state or with data. It just gives you a value there, which is wrapped by the mutable state. It's a generic function or generic method which corrupt with different types like boolean or like string, etc., or custom types. But it just gives some different values to that. And of course, you can wrap some state object to wrap your data, but basically there's no different state like waiting or not or do nothing, something like that. I hope it will be improved in the future. And yeah, on the UI, you have to handle your state. As mentioned, you have different, on the Flutter, you have different state like do nothing, like waiting, like done, which means you get data, or if there's errors, you will handle the errors on the widget or the inside the widget method. On the Android Compose, on the Android Compose, maybe you have to define your own state and handle in a big switch case, or the Kotlin code one case. Yeah, the next is the navigation. You see on Flutter and on Compose, they have both the idea to finish the navigation concept. Especially on Flutter, there are now two different ways. One is imperative way and one is declarative way. So either the imperative way or declarative way on the Flutter, you still have to decide from the very beginning when you start your project. They have different approach to achieve the navigation. Here, I don't want to go more deeper to that, but don't make wrong that the 1.0 or 2.0, they are actually totally different ones, but they are on the same level. Google doesn't say, hey, you must use imperative or you must use the declarative. They are just a different approaches to achieve the navigation. If it works with the 1.0, then just keep using 1.0. On the Android Compose, there's already a KTX wrapper over the previous navigation library, so-called navigation compose library. It's just a wrap over the older stuff, but currently it's still in dev alpha, but it works like a big switch case. So to navigate or to route you to different places you are going to. So for the data, on Compose or on Android, we use the data storage or data store. It's a new stuff introduced last year or 2019. There are two different ways to do the data store. You can put your traditional the preference, the key value in this data store, or use the protobuf type, which is a type-safe way to save your data in the data store. On the Flutter, there are the famous library called Hy-Vee Flutter. It's also a key value map or type-safe box. So you can just put an object in this box and unbox it. It's a pretty type-safe, and compared to the Android type value or key value stuff, Hy-Vee also support the type-safe way. Just put the string or int in the box or in the map, but it's not type-safe. Of course, there's a shared preference library. I believe all Flutter developers have some experience with this library. It's just a keep value. I think it support only the primitive type. Maybe I forget, but personally, I just recommend to use the Hy-Vee as your data store to save your app preference data. So the database, basically the Android Compose or Flutter, they are using the SQLite, the famous, and a lot of apps are using this library both. For Flutter, there are third-party library or third-party plugin, which supports us SQLite, very stable. And for the Compose, since I believe since 2017 or 2016, Google announced the Room, which is a wrapper over the SQLite. It's a pretty retrofit style. You just define the interface and write the SQL command to fetch data from the SQLite database. Pretty simple, and you ditch a lot of complex configuration when you use the ROM. Sorry. Yeah, it is not part of the Compose only. It's part of the whole modern Android development story. The next stuff, maybe the dependency injection, DI. On Android Compose, recently Google announced a very mini Dagger version, so-called Hilt. It's actually based on Dagger. I hope all Android background Flutter developer knows this. The header is a very minimal version which build upon the whole Dagger stories and ditch a lot of Dagger complexity. And the Flutter normally also Google recommends use the provider, which also announced 2 years ago. Yeah, it's a kind of data injection or type injection or object injection stuff, and it's also a like a wrapper over the global objects which will be shared in different widgets, so-called provider. Yeah, here because the Android is the native Android development has almost more than 10 years history. So the architecture, if we talk architecture for Android, it's more rich, and Android has a lot experience in the architecture. There's already a lot of the rich architecture components, so-called on Android, you can use directly to support Android native development. Of course, for Compose as well, like the view model, like the paging, like the room asset, and you can build the repository very easy. And then for Flutter, on the contrary, there's no official architecture which introduced by Google, but you can simulate the Android ones to Flutter as well, as long as you think about like the block as a view controller, and they used Hy-Vee as a data storage, and use SQLite like your database to use that as your database. You can wrap both of them in the repository, and use the provide as a data injection. So finally, you'll find if you're using the layer controlled architecture on the Flutter platform, you can just one-to-one build from Android style to the Flutter style easy. Well, talk about too much, so it brings just some roughly or scope over this topic. But I did a one-to-one compare between the Compose and the Flutter in a repository. So basically, it's a news app. No, it's not a news app. It's just a app show a small news or two news items on the page. It's an overview, and it shows the overview page and the detail page, and it's driven by different approach, the Flutter approach and the Android approach, but using the same architecture. So if you have interest, you can visit this and give some question, and maybe can input more, which is similar between the Flutter and the Compose, and improve this repository. So here's some comments from my side. So we raised the topic about the Flutter and the Compose and the compare, but I don't want to say they are strong competitors between each other. So you must use Flutter to build your future mobile application, or you must stick to Flutter because it's cross-platform. But actually, there is a similar topic we talked on Compose library, Compose world, that we can use Compose to write Compose desktop. But maybe you have, it depends, actually, I want to say it depends on your own purpose, what you want to do. So if you really want to get a, how to say, a faster growing feature for a startup, I personally suggest use the Flutter to do this. But it doesn't mean you must stick to the Flutter forever, because the Compose, which is declarative programming, it is still growing. We still don't know what could happen in the future in the Android native world. As Grisha said, the native Android development world very complex. Actually, if you want to build a list, it could be more difficult, as you expected. If you're Android developer background, you know this. But I hope, and the expectation is, in the future, the Compose will be the major or the mainly tool in the Android developer native, and the Flutter and the Compose can share the same mobile in the mobile industry as we wish. And I hope that you can enjoy using the Flutter in the future. But I hope that if you have interest, please just take a look at the Compose world. They are really, really similar, and they are really, really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Awesome. So do we have some comments in the chat? iOS gang, yeah, iOS +1. So Chris, are you bullying the iOS developers out there?
Yeah. As I said, for me, it's really. I'm a developer, and I just jumped into the Compose not too much, and maybe all developers have the same feeling that as long as you get new stuff which is similar to the platform you are working, you might have interest to compare between them. But interesting is, as I said, they are not competitive between each other, and they have different use cases. Yeah. So on iOS there is a Swift UI. It's also interesting, but to be honest, there are different use cases, different context, and if you really want to do something only for Android or let's say desktop, so maybe Compose is the one you want to you can use, or I mean, it will be more convenient. But if you think your production is ready for or it will be used for a fast growing startup, and your boss said, hey, next week we must get something, so maybe the Flutter is a rich one for you because it's already stable, and as you say, it can even build a web developer.
Yeah. We do have a question incoming for you. Robert is asking, do you think Compose is ready for production use?
Basically, it can be built in production.
So you don't see any problems?
Yeah, but as you see, it's an alpha, which means API could be changed. You can't guarantee that next time if you rebuild a project, you get a lot of warnings. You can't build it because the API change. But you can use Compose now to build a product as you wish, if you have interest.
Cool. Great. I would like to invite the other guys again to the stage. So Grisha, René, Eric.
Hello. Yeah, hello. Long time no see.
Yeah, and definitely we want to start with Ask Us Anything. But
first of all, can you give a shout out to Nino, because you already created a merge request or pull request to our page?
Yeah. I just want to highlight this as well.
So, sorry.
I already took a look just quick, and I want to give an additional shout out because I really like that he like invested the way, or looked actually the way we built the website and integrated just as we would have built it, like made some entry in the routing helper and so on. Like really nice that you were able to just look into the code in our way of doing it and just integrate it like it has been written by us. Really, really guys, really good.
Yeah. Really nice.
Will
Good.
be refused, of course, but nice job.
Good job, but yeah. Maybe you can use it for your private website.
No, really nice, really nice.
Yeah, just kidding. So really, really cool. And this is basically what we are aiming for, right? To build a community around our Flutter meetup group and have also this website now as a side project where we can create with a community something great. Yeah.
But do you have I don't know, where do you deploy your web page? So my last experience with Flutter Web is I deploy it in the Firebase. So I don't know how to deploy it in the third-party server.
Yeah.
So
in our since I'm AWS experienced, I took over the CI/CD for our website. So I used GitHub Actions for CI/CD and basically used AWS, also infrastructure as code together. So with CloudFormation, we are using S3 buckets hooked in with CloudFront distribution, and the distribution is then linked to a subdomain or to a top-level domain. And everything you can also find in our GitHub. But also to do the same in Firebase, it's also possible since the build just generates assets, right?
Yeah. And for the third party, actually, we are using like I just created a subdomain of my domain and just like publish it there manually or like with a small script to just push it there every time we want to test something live on production on the thing. So you can do it as well.
Yeah. Cool. So I definitely spotted 2 questions. So Peter also asked in the very beginning if someone of us has already worked with Flutter Version Manager.
Just recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I once tried it out in my client's project last year. Where I had some issues, I don't know where they came from. We had some issues in general because, for example, like when the new Xcode version came out, we still had to use the old ones because some package, like one build runner for the generation was relying on a specific version. We had a crazy issue with that. So we were a little bit, hindered by that. So I basically aborted using FVM, but just last week, I think, I picked it up again because I got a new laptop to set up. And I thought this is the perfect opportunity to try it again. And from what I saw, works very fine. I worked pretty fine a few months ago, I guess, also, but now everything works on my machine. I think it's also properly documented. Like the README is pretty long. You just have to find the relevant stuff for you. For example, like setting it up in Visual Studio Code, that it also uses the correct SDK version then as configured, and also like depending on your team setup, like maybe you don't want to commit the hidden files from the FVM. And also, if you haven't seen this yet, they have an alpha build of a UI for the whole thing. So you can either use it as a CLI kind of thing to do everything in your terminal or whatever you want to use. But they also have a visual and actual app also built with Flutter, which is very interesting, so that you have like a few functionalities there. You can see all the different versions. You can instead of writing commands, not everybody likes this, myself included. You can just use the graphical interface to use it, and I think it works pretty fine.
Cool. Hopefully it answers some question marks from Peter. A second question we received from the dev Ben. It was a few minutes ago. It's all about 1 hour ago. He asked basically which parameters should you consider when you have the decision between native or Flutter?
Grisha.
Yeah.
Grisha, that's your thing. That's your thing.
Yeah, I think Chris already said some few points about it, but as I see it, it's really a decision of a team. It's not something that you can say we go only native, we go only Flutter. Of course, there are cases when you should definitely go with native if you check the features that you want to use from the native platform and you don't know how to kind of integrate them with Flutter, and you will need to write your own package for that to handle all this stuff. Of course, you can go with native, but right now what I see and what I also experienced in Flutter, you can always do it by yourself. So it's like a platform where you can create everything what you want. You just need to know how to use the platform channels, and just write the native plugins to access this different In general, just keep an eye on the designs and also the different screen sizes, as I said, and also the different fonts. So like this is something that you will need to take care of. But as I said, there is no way to say this or that, as always.
So it's basically a depends answer. A default developer answer, it depends.
Yeah, it depends.
How can this question? Like, even if you would ask about any web technology, how would you say about it?
Yeah, indeed, I totally agree. Yeah.
And very impressive that 1 year now, before the Corona, let's say, before the Corona, as I learned the Flutter as the first time, very impressive experiences that I got the idea, a very tiny, a very simple idea on Friday evening, and I used Saturday to build, and the Sunday I ship it. This is my first experience in Flutter. So although it's a very mini idea, very mini, just show a grade, show some photos, just some button, paging it. Just 3 days, I ship one in the store. But the same didn't happen on Android. You have to think about the view pager. You have to think about the list view. You have to write a lot. But yeah, now similar happened on Compose. So you get tiny idea on Friday evening to put some photos on the list or put some photos on grid view on the view page. You do this just by with writing some small code, just 1 or 2 lines, even 3 lines, then finish it without adapter, without journable or certain stuffs. Just use some easy way in the Compose platform. But Compose is still in alpha. I think it will be more powerful in the future.
Mm.
So I think there is just a question: you want to go one platform or cross-platform also, which should be answered before going into that direction.
Yeah. But maybe some more handy question comes from Matthias. What's your guess to be announced on the 3rd of March this year?
Flutter Web?
Nullable type, I believe.
None.
And it will be discussed a lot, probably, yes.
Yeah. And you mean, Grisha, Flutter for Web ready for production?
Yes.
No.
That would be cool. That would be cool. But I think it's too high anticipated. I don't think it's so close to it.
Maybe also the Flutter desktop, including Windows, Mac, Linux, everything one stop.
I'm also doubting a bit here.
But isn't this already in alpha? So building Flutter desktop, isn't it in alpha?
Yeah, in alpha. But I mean, it could be that they put it up to beta since they are maybe more confident now. I think you can already do a lot of things in the Windows or other environments, but I think there's still a lot of improvement, and maybe it's a step to beta. This would be cool. Yeah.
And that would give us the opportunity to do an Electron versus Flutter talk.
Yeah.
Finally.
Finally, yeah.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that will be an interesting comparison, I think.
And maybe we will have a Flutter meetup application.
I don't know if something that will be announced on this date or this particular show, but something I'm really looking forward to. There's like one or multiple issues which talk about some serious jankiness on Android and iOS, mostly caused by shaders, which has to be initialized once you use animations and so on. So I don't know how you have been issued it, but for example, my app uses kind of a lot of animations, and like on a cold boot, it will cause a lot of issues with jankiness, even though the app is after some movement. Once you've like triggered all the animation once, the app runs smoothly as butter. But this jankiness is like happening mostly on iOS due to Metal, since they transitioned over from OpenGL to Metal, and but it's still happening on Android. And I just recently saw that one very big issue has been closed regarding this. Not that this had been solved, but they want to prioritize it even more. But so maybe they can announce some big improvements regarding that.
That could be awesome. But I'm curious about this jankiness or the issue. Could you post also the link to it, because I never experienced it.
I can show you. I can show you. Like I said, it's mostly happened like in more bigger environments where like you make heavy use of animations, or for example, something that's really heavy is making use of blurriness. If you make use of image filter or blur filter, it's something that can be very resource hungry, and this in combination with animations can cause jankiness. But as I said, just in the first run, that's what's so frustrating, because once you've triggered all the animations, your app runs smoothly as quick. But the first impression is mostly not so nice because it's laggy, and it's like, why? But I can show you. I will link the issue, and you can even download the app I'm talking about. You can experience on your own. But later on.
Later on, maybe Grisha wants to animate his roller coaster.
Yeah, for example, that would be cool.
Okay, so basically nothing new. What we expect on the 3rd of March.
Yeah, true.
Maybe, I don't know. No, I'm not gonna say anything anymore.
But as I said in the presentation, I'm looking for the official architecture introduction of Flutter. You see, in the Flutter world, there's different way to make the app. There's no official like 3 layers driven or 4 layers driven. Even you can put everything in one widget. It still works, but compare to Android, almost all Android apps using the layers driven set. It's almost like the official introduction. You use the repository, different data source, and the view model and the fragments or activities. But certain stuff doesn't happen in the Flutter world. I hope one day Google will introduce like architecture components for Flutter, which can do the same thing or similar thing. You can follow the boilerplate architecture stuff, but actually you find a direction, not like today that before you start Flutter, you will talk with iOS style people, how do you do on the iOS platform, and of course talk about Android people, how you do with Android. So
yeah, true. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Because right now you're like heavily dependent on third-party libraries to get the structure out of the box. And if you would do it on your own, it would cause a lot of boilerplate. And the only like guideline you have if you want to go like clean is like making use of something like inherited widget. But even this would require a lot of like boilerplate to make it the usual as you describe it. Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good point. And my only 2 cents about it, maybe they are talking about Navigator 3.0. We will see.
Oh. but
I don't hope it.
But if you are so familiar with the navigation 1.0, you will find navigation 2.0 is totally different. They are they are working like a widget, but yeah, as mentioned, it's not about who is right, who is wrong. It's about a different way to do the navigation. And if the 1.0 works for you, then choose 1.0. If a 2.0 works for you, choose 2.0. So there's no totally definition or the boundary between them. Even there are some guys who are using the both for different use case in the same project. But I'm personally stick to the 1.0 enough for me, navigate to the place where you are going. So just different approaches.
Yeah, true. I'm full with you. I'm going with Navigator 1.0 myself too. The only thing where I think currently 2.0 like has some benefits is like the easier handling of something like if you're on a web environment, like some parameters you want to
the
provide.
URL,
Yeah, that's easier to do in Navigator 2.0. So that's like the only like benefit if you want to be in a web. But other than that, I'm full with you. I'm using 1.0 myself because I like this the way to do that. Yeah.
But by the way, the example of 2.0 is very complex.
Yeah, true.
I don't know why, but why don't they introduce like a hello world way or just simple way? But they from the very beginning they introduced a very long man activity or a man widget and show different link to different page side, and they use the they just mix the web style and the desktop style or phone style together. But
They
Yeah,
just
100%
want,
with you.
they just want to put maybe the 2.0 implementation, I don't know, on stage, and it's more or less a showcase. Look what we can achieve, or what you can achieve with 2.0, maybe. Yeah. Good, guys. I don't think I see any questions anymore. We are already
the only question I could go to now. Like, there was one question about one guy who asked about the production ready for the CRM project management, and the later question was what our suggestion would be when web might hit stable, or when we would suggest using it. And like, I'm bringing it up, but I don't have a good answer. So because I would say it's not easy to tell that, because obviously once Flutter would announce a stable version of that, that would be a good indicator for that. But no one knows for sure when this will be. And I mean, it could be for the upcoming event, maybe. So it would be nice for you actually, and everyone who is like looking forward to try the web stuff in Flutter as well. But from the current perspective, like, it's hard to tell. I would say the more production, the more enterprise the application should be, the more I would say it's getting a bigger no. I would say for like small applications and like maybe even for production, but like in small environment, it could work where it's not like heavily dependent and has to be like 99% uptime with no errors and so on. It could work, sure, but the higher you scale, the more enterprise it should be, the bigger the no gets. So, for example, for what we are doing for the meetup stuff website, it's a good use case, and we already had some difficulties which like shouldn't have been, for example, and wouldn't be if you would use like Vue, React, or whatever. And so you have to be very careful. Very careful.
So maybe to sum it up, you said, okay, you are founding a startup. So first of all, really good. So we can definitely say Flutter for mobile. No worries, production ready, go for it. But considering if you are planning web solutions, maybe you should really go for really native web solutions for now. Because most probably as a startup, you want to bring value to your customers and not struggling. Your engineers should not struggle with the implementation details.
True.
What you would say about Angular Dart?
No, I'm not really a fan.
Why Angular Dart, man?
No.
Like, I wouldn't say Dart is better than TypeScript yet. Like, TypeScript is definitely more mature. Like, Dart has a few cool features that are neat, but I think if you like, the more enterprisey you go, like TypeScript is a very, like, especially because it's baked into Angular mentality. So like Angular Dart works, but I've never actually seen it. I mean, I don't know.
I think the best approach would be if you would like to do cross shit easily for this stuff. You could do something like, for example, like a good synergy would obviously be like going React Native, for example. I mean, it's a really similar code base and just some adjustments to go that line. And we all know that like React is pretty mature right now and is still very popular. I think if you would have to decide now for something like that, I think it would be a way easier decision, because even you will find React developers way easier now. And I think Flutter web and the whole Flutter economy, including web, will be production ready in a soon future.
And I also think that we don't need to forget about the progressive web applications.
Yeah.
True.
Instead of mobile apps sometimes.
I don't know. This was a thing 5 years ago when they were like, yeah, man, this is like so close to being the big thing, but it never really took off. Like, I don't know. I think it really shows in the success of Flutter that people prefer doing this and doing it separately instead doing just a website and make it installable. Because yeah, I don't know. It just feels better, I think, overall. Also having made the transition in comparison myself, I also was like pretty hyped about PWAs back in the day, but yeah, it has a lot since degraded. I don't know.
It
Yeah,
was not really
PWA is
adapted,
dead. Highlight the comment, Mike. Highlight it.
Very
You
nice.
don't see it yet, right?
I don't see
No,
it yet.
take some time. Take some time.
Takes a few seconds, right? Yeah, there it is.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you, Peter. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, Apple didn't support this actually. Yeah, I mean, I think by now it is actually as possible as in Chrome, for example.
Super hidden.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
they never really wanted it really, and this is also why it took so long. I remember in 2016, I went to a developers conference, and there was like I said, like so close to being the big thing, and a lot of people were talking about it. And like, I mean, it took Apple 4 to 5 years to actually implement it, and this is also a part of the reason why I think it died down, especially the hype died down.
Yeah, true.
Good. I guess we can make a cut here. We are already live since 2 hours, so we don't want to
Sure.
stress ourselves and also our viewers. I mean, we do have a lot of great talks. Maybe this is also something we can catch up for upcoming meetups. If this is really a thing our community wants to talk to, and especially we as speakers, maybe we want to present something. But besides that, I really want to say thank you to all of you guys who presented today. It was super nice to watch your slides and listening to your voices. I'm super glad also of our software choice today. It was also for me a pleasure to play basically behind the scenes a bit. And also to you as viewers. Hopefully you have also a pleasure stay tonight. For sure you can rewatch it in case you missed something. But besides that, I would say let's go ahead. Be safe these days. Corona is still there, so take care. And maybe you know what comes. Maybe we can make a countdown to shut down.
No, come on.
Oh, okay. Good. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a nice evening. See you next time.
Bye.